friends.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to Black and White Thoughts.
Ayo, episode 2.
Episode dose. So we're basically like a thing now. It may or may not be the same night.
Nope.
But it's cool.
It's happening.
It's a legit podcast now.
We have
followers.
Doing out here things.
Do we have followers?
We do.
We have followers?
I clearly run the social media platform.
Very much so. I coordinate the podcasting.
You do. We've got our roles. We know our roles.
Also, since we did the first one, ate pizza and came back, still haven't watched a podcast.
No, we are still two episodes in and have yet to watch or listen to.
I think that's actually gonna be like my goal. Is like legit never watch a podcast.
I hope we get so huge.
We're gonna get an Ellen and be like,
I never seen one. It will be the most longest running joke on the history of. Oh, she's never. She doesn't even know what a podcast is. I just edit the whole thing and throw it up.
She listens on Facebook. Like, no, she doesn't even do that.
No,
don't even do that.
She listens to them live while they're happening.
All right, so. Goal number 2, because number 1 is like, making an impact, sharing, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. 2
is I will not watch podcasts.
No, don't do it. Please. Like, I would be disappointed.
Listen, right? Like,
if it happens by accident, that doesn't count. Like, if it happens by accident, like, someone just puts one on. Because you might be riding in the car with me one day and I'll just put one on.
Oh.
That doesn't count.
Well, the good news is last time I was in a car with you was like...
It's been a minute.
It's been
a good minute.
Cool. So, never ride with KJ.
No.
I will do my best.
Please.
All right, so today, as in like later today, we're gonna.
I'm just like repeating.
You did sit there as an echo and you said.
I'm just literally just repeat. Later today, just add like a little extra to it for no reason.
So we're gonna talk about black sass in another episode. But here's a preview. Can you like drop one of these in there to really hold up the stereotype?
For those of you listening, I'm neck rolling right now.
Neck rolling. Okay, so today we're going to talk about implicit association.
Yeah.
And that's just a fancy way of saying like sometimes we think things we don't know we think.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what that meant. So if you were like, what was that fancy jargon? Mm-hmm. I literally texted her and said, what does that mean? For
what it's worth, I also didn't know what it was, but... I read a Harvard thing, and so I basically went there. As in their website there.
She's a grad.
I am.
Count it.
Yeah, sure.
Everything's online
Honorary.
now. You were pre-COVID. It's fine. Everything's online.
So we're going to talk about implicit association, which is, like I said, it's in short, it's like the thoughts you didn't know you have. Mm-hmm. And in this time and in this topic, I'm talking obviously like racially, like racial bias, and that's something that I've been kind of struggling with, and I think that's why I am putting up that defense wall so quickly with a lot of these things coming at me, is because I am very steadfast in that I am not racist.
Yeah.
And
like a lot of people.
Exactly. Like that. When we think racist, we think like the hood. Extreme, we think like the beatings. We think everything.
Yeah. Like the most bigoted person you could think about.
Exactly.
And you're like, I'm not that person.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I let you in my house.
I know. I'm still trying to figure out why, but
I mean, you just walked in.
You're right. I did. I was actually.
There was no letting.
I had faith that the garage door was open. I took a chance.
So I think I started looking around and trying to read about just like what is racial bias versus racism, and I stumbled on this Harvard test, and it's this implicit association test. And there's a lot of controversy around it. It's not like a totally proven, like, on the scale of how racist you are. That's not even the right word. Well, how implicitly associated you are, I guess.
Just made that up.
Yeah, I totally made up. That's not from Harvard, just so we're clear.
Coin it.
So that's what I wanted to see, like, okay, how racist am I? How biased am I? So I took this test, and it shows African American and European American. They're very specific.
They are.
Pictures. They shoot them back and forth. You have to quick react. And then they start putting bad and good words near where the faces were before. You go back and forth. It's all a timing thing. Check it out. Website probably not below.
In the bio.
But Google it.
YouTube.
There's a...
what is it? Like, comment, subscribe.
There you go.
Turn notifications on. I'm gonna be a professional at this, but
we should probably learn them all so we know everything.
I think I hit them. Like, comment, subscribe, notifications. I think that's all of them.
What's notifications?
The little bell that lets you know when a video goes up. Yeah, that was perfect. That's exactly what, I'm pretty sure that's what it does.
Oh, well, look at me.
Ew.
I'm
still running the social media
I'm
thing.
so
Don't worry.
professional podcaster. Anyways, so check out the test and you can take a look and see. But I took it to see where I fell, and it's a scale of like basically how much you prefer African Americans over European Americans or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And I was really disappointed when I got slightly preferring European Americans. So
yeah, you were kind of like, you're texting me. I was like, I felt that. You're like, yeah, because I'm not racist. And then I got this. And then you just gotta take it. And I was like, oh, yeah. There's some passion.
I was like, oh, slight. Like, that's awesome. I'm just like a little tiny bit. Like, really cool.
Yeah.
And then I looked and there's like one lower than slight.
And you were like, you felt slighted?
I was like,
I'm
so racist.
That didn't land. I said you felt slighted.
Oh, shit. I wasn't listening. Okay. I should listen to our own podcast where I say, like, listen.
Dang it.
No. Sorry.
It wasn't funny. It wasn't funny.
It was super funny. Okay.
We just lost like 2.
We're down to 2 subscribers from 4.
We got 4, we're down to 2.
So I took it and I got slight. And it just made me start to think about like where I might have lived that in my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
And so like I thought of sometimes, I'm like, maybe I was, and I didn't know about it.
Like introspective. Like that was good.
Well, and so I'm just curious, like, can you think of any examples or any times where like you might have gotten that vibe off of somebody, me, anybody,
like a slight bias towards
where you're just
people?
like, you know, they think they're being good, but like,
every
felt
day.
that
every day. I think that's just how people live. We live in like, we think we're living in gray, but we have like these subconscious, like, pun intended, black and whites. Right? Like, but I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, every day. But I mean, in the sense of like, people make, I mean, Greg said it, like, you catch people making like offhanded comments that they don't even realize is an offhanded comment. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't necessarily peg them as like, oh, that dude's super racist.
Right.
So it's like hard to give you like an exact example, but like for me personally, and I think like it mostly pops up in my like professional life.
Because people are probably even more like PC aware.
Yeah, they're trying to be, and it almost is like they're trying so hard that it like they just overdo it.
Right.
And you're like, you should have just said what you were thinking.
Well, it's like how we started this podcast. I was like, KJ, should we address like we're calling black people black, white people white?
Yeah.
Or should we like cover that it's African Americans,
like,
whatever?
Don't do anything. Just talk.
Because it's just like I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to like say?
What's on your mind? Say what's on your mind.
I don't know.
It's called.
What's on my mind is like you're actually not black. You're brown.
I'm brown. I know, right?
But brown is like a whole different person.
It is.
So
it is. I didn't make the rules, you know.
So like I thought about like my name's Monika. Like that's a pretty. It's actually a super European name.
I was gonna say most people like
straight off the boat. And by boat I mean plane. My dad's
people are like, oh, that sounds super black. I'm like, no, it's not.
Like, well, and so I learned that like some places I go to work and they have a really hard time learning that. Like I obviously get Monica a lot. I get this weird like Monika, all sorts of weird things. I had a boss try Mo for a while.
And you were like, please don't.
That doesn't work. Doesn't work for me.
That's for me.
Yeah, that's for like KJ and KJ.
No, actually, that's such a good point. I feel like you probably deal with it more directly than I do because of your name.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Because your name is so, like, ethnic, right? To put the air quotes in there, right? Because, like, people don't, they just do that, right? They do that right away by accident.
Right.
Oh, Monika. And it's like, no.
Well, like, I've definitely started jobs where I show up and they're like, oh, so...
Well, it's not what we thought.
Okay.
You're nothing like what we pictured. I don't know why they sound like that, but that's the voice that I have.
That's how really smart people sound.
Your voice and your sound does not match your name.
Well, I just started thinking, like, you know, so I've actually, like, used the descriptor, like, my name's Monika, like, the black girl named Monique, add an
Oh.
And I realized, like...
Oh. I've never heard you say that.
I've said it. Yeah. I mean, I like jokingly. I'm never like, oh, you know, like, think of a black girl. Her name is Monique. Add an
I'm thinking of her.
But like, okay. You know, you think of like Monique. That's.
I mean, I think of like the comedian who is hilarious. So I get the reference.
I know there's a person. I'm so bad at names. So
you're bad at just like anything culturally related that's like not meant to make you look smart. So all the dumb things like Kardashians and like
What are those?
like exactly
It's a seasoning, right? I don't know.
No, but Mrs. Dash is a seasoning you grew. No, like Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian. You know what? Move on. Move on. Anyway, yes, I like that. That would be, what is it? What's it implicitly? An association.
Yeah.
Right? Like your name is almost that.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right? I don't even know if I
Yeah, let's roll with it.
put that together properly. Anyway, so what was your next question?
No, I just thought
What was your point? I'm sorry.
No, my thought was just like that's something that like I could say and like to some extent it probably has some sort of like bias behind it
Yeah.
or like some like I'm obviously associating the name Monique with a black girl.
Correct.
Because, you know, they have these like fancy, you know, exquisite names like Kenesha.
Hey, shout out to me.
You know? And so I just thought like, okay, that's an example of like where maybe I was living a slight bias that I didn't know I had.
I like that.
Although that one always makes me uncomfortable when I say it. But anyways.
Don't say
Another
it.
one I thought is like,
Knock it off.
well, that's just it. Like, you know, so that's what I should be. I should be aware of these things, and that's something that like I started to think about, like how we actively change ourselves so we can get there. But another example I thought is like, I used to live in Michigan, next to a town that's kind of falling apart. I think my exact phrase has been like, light it on fire, start over. North of Detroit, but it is heavily resembles Detroit. But it's a town that I used to just like say, burn it down, start over. Like it needs a lot of help. And one time I was on E, and I had to go to the gas station. Like there was no way I was making it pull in. And I get there, and I'm just like, put a gallon in. We just make it to the next station. And this guy starts walking up to me, and I'm just like, oh shit, you know, like, here he comes. He's gonna ask for money.
Was he black?
He's black. And it's just like, that's exactly what I'm thinking is gonna happen. He's gonna ask money, he's gonna ask for food, ask for gas, ask for a ride, I don't know. And he comes up to me and just so sweet is like, excuse me, miss, I'm short a dime inside. Do you have one? And I just remember just being like,
I'm awful.
yeah, I have a dime.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think I took out a quarter and was like, I don't have a dime. Here's a
Yeah.
quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, woo, look at me, a hero.
Yeah, but interesting. Why do you think you thought that immediately? Like, what do you think that was?
Well, and that's like, I tried to think like at the time, I was like, it had nothing to do with race. It had to do with like where I was.
Okay.
Like that town is falling apart.
Statistically known to be dumpy.
Yeah, and so like that's what I tell myself.
Okay.
But then I don't know. Like if it would have been a white guy, would I have been like, oh hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Which, for the record, I'm more afraid of white dudes than black guys because, like, white dudes, or I don't know if it's a media thing, but have you seen the amount of serial killers that are white? My goodness.
Speaking of Dexter.
My goodness. I'm telling you.
No, so
Also, I was kidding people. Like, is it, oh my god, she's afraid of white? No.
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I'm sure there's some statistics.
Oh, I'm sure. There's people are crazy. It doesn't matter what color you are. People are nuts. But no, to your point, it's actually kind of cool for you to stop and think about that because I think everybody listening, myself included, was like, it's because he was black. Yeah. But you almost don't know. You're like, was it circumstantial? And like, how often does it go back and forth, right? Like, how often is it like, no, I 100% had a bias in that situation based off of the color of his skin, or no, I really didn't. It just kind of sounded like that because of the situation that I was in. Right. But also, this made me think of a conversation I had with a friend a few weeks ago. How I was saying that a lot of people, I've been bringing to their attention that when they describe things, typically if it's a bad situation, they always, especially if it's a person of color, they always tend to put the race or like the color of that person. Right? And I'm like, and those are those little, those are little things that, like, you didn't need to do that, right? Like, use an example. I'm in the grocery store and, like, someone hits me in the heel with a shopping cart and, like, pisses me off. Right? If it's a white lady, I'd never go, dude, this freaking white lady hit me in the heel with a shopping cart. No.
I feel like we should go after those white ladies before.
Yeah, right. But, like, you know what I mean, though? It's always, like, if it's not a white person, anytime the color is brought up, it tends to follow something pretty negative.
So here's the cynic in me, is like, being black is still minority. So are we doing that because we associate black with the bad thing? or because the assumption is you're white until I say they're black.
I do not think that. I have never in my life assumed.
To make that clear.
No, I've never in my life assumed a person was white until I was told otherwise. And like,
Is that
if you're
black?
out there, no. If you're out there and you disagree, please let me know. And then explain to me why, because I actually want to understand your point of view.
Yeah.
But no, never in my life have I ever been like, someone's telling me the story, and I'm like, oh, this guy must be white. Oh, he was black? No, like never, ever. But it's like, for some reason...
And there's a twist.
There's a plot twist. He was black. No, it's weird because I guess I've just not seen it enough on the other side where the bad thing, insert bad thing, was a white person, but it was explained that it was a white person. Mm-hmm. It's always like, oh yeah, I was in the mall the other day, and this black dude just bumped into me, and it's like, the color of his skin had zero relevance to that story. Some dude in the mall bumped into you, and you were pissed off about it. That's all I had to say, right? Oh yeah, this Asian lady, right? Or this Mexican guy, like it's that, like, and I don't think people realize that they're doing that. I've never, dude, this white guy, never, and it almost sounds weird. Like I'm like, okay, the white guy. But it's weird. I don't know. It's just an observation, and I wonder. I don't know if it has anything to do with this topic or not. But when you said that, thinking back, like, am I subconsciously being racist, or is it because of the circumstance? And there are a lot of stories where the circumstance does not matter. Like, I did not need to know the color of that person. I don't care if the lady that was screaming at you in the car and flicked you off was Asian.
Right.
That means nothing. There was a lady in a car that flicked you off and you were upset about it. That's all you had to say.
So to change that, though,
yeah,
that's something that, like, okay, as a person telling the story, I need to work to be more conscious of it. But how do we communicate? I mean, that not everybody will respond well to you stopping the story and saying, hey, did that color matter?
Right.
But right now we're a little more open to that. So
I think
is this the time where we have to be conscious and listening and just saying, hey, listen, was that relevant?
I think it is. I think it's we have to be open to the idea and the possibility of changing the way that we think. And I think that we have to be open on both sides. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're a person of color or not, of receiving information that someone else perceives as uncomfortable. We don't do that right now.
Yeah.
Right? Period. Like, I don't care who it is or what the situation. If I said something and you told me that you were, like, it bothered you, because you're my dear friend, it's much easier for me to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Why can't we do that for strangers? I don't understand why it's so hard. It's a person. At the end of the day, it's a person across from you that you offended. Whether you agree that you offended that person or not, or that you made that person uncomfortable by what you said, it doesn't matter. That person perceived what came out of your mouth as uncomfortable. So we really, right now, to fix that, to answer your question, we need to check our own egos.
Right. Yeah. No,
seriously.
That's something that I think we've had some interesting stories in our neighborhood lately, completely unrace related, just interesting stories. And the question I keep asking anybody who's out gossiping about is, when did we stop realizing we're all reasonable people?
Yes.
Like, at the end of the day, like, most people, there's always a few bad eggs, but, like, most people want to be good people.
Oh, totally.
So for you to stop me and, for me to check my ego and just say, like, oh, sorry, like, you're right, that was completely irrelevant.
Where did that go? And, like, when did that go and how fast did it go, right? Because we blinked one day and all of a sudden it was like, well, I'm sorry that you think that. It's like, no, don't say I'm sorry and then follow it up with your justification.
Right.
Right? Just say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. Whether you agree with it or not, that's
right.
Those are my feelings.
Well, and that's where, like, if you're going to, like, go defensive automatically, you'll go, like, well, like, you took offense to that. It sounds like something you need to fix. Yeah. Oh, you're being too PC. We can't say anything anymore. So I think, it's just really important to be able to open to those egos, open to that learning opportunity. Because
they're there. And, like, and if you think at any point in time that you are done learning, boy, you got some problems.
Boy, you gotta go to Harvard now.
It's probably
EDU.
It probably is.
I clearly haven't been there.
EDU and or com, depending on
probably on both.
How much you want to look into it. I don't know. I'm rambling.
I digress. You said that once last time.
I did a really good job. I was very mindful of making sure I don't say I digress, because as we know...
But you didn't digress.
I digress. You're right. I don't think I actually I didn't really digress.
No.
Not.
We'll get there.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen. I'm so bad at that.
Once I learn how to
You gotta reel me back.
cast my pods, you know.
Yeah, pod your cast.
Okay. So I was just trying to think about like how we, you know, calling each other out, being aware of it is something, but it's kind of like in the last episode we were talking about like Juneteenth, like is this a fad or is this now the time where like we're making an impact with companies and estates and whatnot?
Yeah.
There's a chance that this disappears. We stop being conscious of this on a daily basis.
It's kind of already happening a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah,
like,
it's getting a lot quieter.
Yeah, on social media and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the news.
Yeah, so it's like, how do we keep that alive? You know, there's like the exposure aspect, like diversify your circles, and there's, you know, those different intergroups, but like, what else can we do so on a daily basis? Because that's something through this whole thing I started thinking about, like, who should I talk to? What should I talk to about? Quite frankly, like, I don't have a black circle.
No.
Like, you and your mom are my black circle.
That's all you need.
Like, so I don't have a lot of places and a lot of people that are going to be sitting there, like, uber conscious of this.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
if you do have some people, I mean, kind of how I mentioned in the last podcast, like, if you do know people, not everybody, one, feels comfortable enough to reach out to that person, or two, that person might not necessarily feel comfortable having those conversations with you. So that is kind of a tough situation to be in. And I don't necessarily have the right answer for that. But that is something that I think black people need to be very conscious of too.
So that was something, I guess I'm kind of going back, but like, I had you take the test too. And you actually scored
exactly how I thought.
Exactly.
For the record.
She sits down and goes, I know I'm going to like white people more.
Yeah.
But she did, so she scored one kind of step higher than me as far as preferring European Americans over African. And that's something that, do you think that's common in a lot of black people? Are they preferring?
Ooh.
And this is a very vague term as far as preference.
No, for sure. You know, that's a tough question to ask. And I don't want to generalize all black people because I'm speaking for me.
Right.
But I'll answer that two ways. I'll answer it from my perspective. I knew I was going to favor European American, as the test says, because of how I was raised. Because I didn't have a very big influence of black people in my life. Like, my family was like my direct. And then I was actually just talking about this in the women's group that I was in earlier this week. There was like a handful of black people in our graduating class. And our graduating class was like, what, 560?
We walked 5'10".
5'10"? Okay. Anyway, we had a massive graduating class. And there was what, like, maybe 15, but I wouldn't even say that. Like 10? Yeah, right? Less than?
Book for the next one.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, I favor black people in my conscience because I didn't. I grew up with them. My family's from the South, so as a child, I was around them a lot. But as I started to get older and create memories that I could remember, it was always like white people.
Right.
So that's why I felt that way. So to answer your question the other way, just like, not to generalize, but to answer the question, I feel like, yes, I feel like a lot of black people will probably favor in that test more European because of that is the most representation that we see.
Right.
Just, I mean, you look at anything. You look at media. You look at movies, TV. I mean, other than like sports and like comedy, it's just white people.
Right.
Right? And then you've got like, you sprinkle in your Asians, your Mexicans, and then you got the other little subs like your Puerto Ricans and like, right? But yeah, like I think it's just like, it's just a natural answer for the majority of the world because the majority of the world's representation is white. So that's my answer in that regard. Is it right for some people? I don't know. Take the test. Right? Take the test and let me know what your results are. But I knew from the jump. I was like, oh yeah. Like I didn't need to take it to tell you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you talk about like the representation and things, and so I have many questions on that for future episodes.
Cool.
But I think about like, we call them the minorities because they are the minority. Like, as a percentage of the population, there are less. So it makes sense that in all these areas there is more white exposure, but proportionately it's skewed still, right?
Totally.
There will always be or could always be more whites on the news and writing books and whatnot.
Everywhere. I mean, you pick a topic, and then, or a whatever, and then think of the most famous person. And I guarantee you, like 90% of the time, it'd be a white person.
Oh, we're gonna play that game sometime.
I'm down.
That sounds fun.
I'm down. But it's true. And then like,
guess it's gonna be like a panel.
Okay.
It's gonna be a thing.
Ooh,
it's gonna be cozy in this room.
Look at that. I'm developing while working. Yeah. I don't know. I just think that it's an interesting thing that I know for a fact as a black person. I don't think about it.
Mm-hmm. But because you're not used to it?
Yeah.
Or because you're not trained to think about it?
I'm not trained to think about it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the best answer. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it's like you're conditioned to the world as it is.
Exactly.
So this is where it's so interesting
Yes.
that like the black people are calling for change. Obviously, white people are engaged in that call for change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still the world you lived in too.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm generalizing here, but like, we all have to be conscious of this on a day-to-day basis.
Totally.
You know, black people can't slip back to whatever they were living before.
Right.
It's a conscious step forward.
Yep.
White people, we got to do the same thing, and everybody in between do it all too.
Yeah. Well, that's like, and then this gets dicey. Did her husband the white guy that like owns a company or whatever?
I think we've established. I don't know people very well. But
Oh, you're right. I'm asking the wrong person. Anyway, I think it's Serena Williams. Her husband's white, and he owns a company, and he like stepped down to let a black woman run it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got two types of people that come from that. You got the ones that are like, oh, that was really, cool of him to do, and then you got the other ones like, well, that's reverse racism, and it's like, okay, like I get where you're coming from, but it goes back to the representation of the world. Mm-hmm. Like, we can't continue to let this be status quo. We can't continue to let like 90% of the C's of an organization just be white people.
Right.
And I'm not arguing that like, oh, well, what if they're not qualified? There's a reason that there's the vast majority of CEOs or COOs or CFOs are white. And we need to recognize what that is. And if that comes all the way back down through education, then that's what it is, right? We can take racism off the table. We can take the color of your skin off the table. There's a disconnect somewhere to where it's not even allowing this particular section of people to even be qualified enough to reach that place, right? And you can put black people, just put people of color in that category, because like how many Puerto Ricans do you know running companies?
I don't know.
I don't know any.
I'll go look in Puerto Rico.
But you know what I mean? Like, but it's weird because then on the other side of it, I mean, we kind of talked about like, Jewish people and Muslims, things like that. Like, that stuff matters too. Like, there's not enough representation of that either.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can get in the whole back and forth race and yada, 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 and I know that's obviously, like, the context of what this podcast is about, but, like, you can't talk about the segregation of black and white without also clumping in everybody else, right? Just people that are of minority.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's my thought, at least.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the very beginning, back to the basics. How do we provide a world where there is equality? Doesn't mean that the C-suite is 50-50.
Right.
Because that's not reality.
No.
The equality is giving equal opportunity to those who want to be there.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think too many people misunderstand when people say they want equality. I'm not asking you to hand me anything.
Right.
Please don't. I would be more offended if you were like, okay, you'd be like, oh, you're a woman too? Okay, here you go. No, I want to earn it. But I want to get the opportunity to earn it. Right. And not only do I want to get the opportunity to earn it, I want my sister to have the opportunity to earn it. And I want her children to have the opportunity to earn it. Right? There's a disconnect somewhere. Right. There's not enough opportunity, right, for equality.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out where that begins. And I mean, we might have to go all the way down, but that it's time. It's time for change.
Well, and it'll never change until we start that activities.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
No, I think so I didn't really prepare a lot of questions for this. I was just kind of let's just.
I was like ready. I was like, oh, should I ask me these questions?
No. I mean, I can like define implicit association, but that's not really.
Sure. I mean, if you want to.
I didn't wear my glasses. So.
You can borrow mine.
No. The only rich people wear them.
The clear glasses.
Clear glasses apparently are like a rich person thing.
Only the rich people.
Which is why I'm not wearing them.
I look like I got money. I gotta stop with these weird voices. Do I do this often?
I don't know.
I feel like I do, and we've just like become numb to me making weird like.
We're gonna watch this.
Oh, that's
good. We're gonna find out. You guys are gonna learn and grow so much with us.
I'm gonna learn so much about my weird little like. I'm like, why can I do that?
Especially when we watch ourselves.
Oh,
we do what?
I'm not ready. I'm just looking at her voice waves right now, and I'm already stressed out about it. I'm like, oh.
I really want to talk like loud and quiet now, just to like,
just to watch it go up.
Just watch it go up and down. No, I think really this to me was a topic that is a great start to many more topics. Mm-hmm. We've already touched on so many things that I have had on my list of things I want to go into deeper. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of the start of, being aware of what's going on inside, those thoughts that we don't know we have, mm-hmm. and being conscious of them when you're at the gas station, when you're just telling people to say your name, things like that. And, I started to think about how do we keep it alive, and that's kind of why I asked you. Mm-hmm. And the example I had was when COVID started and toilet paper couldn't be found, right? So this was...
that feels like ages ago, too, by the way.
It does. I was arm wrestling for toilet paper years ago.
I should have been like, dude, that was so 2018. It's like,
so
no. That
was very, very recent.
Right. That quarantine lasted forever.
I think it's still happening. That's
why people are still in it. Like, I just slowly started acclimating back to, like, real life, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, I don't know how to, like, talk to people anymore.
I don't either.
I don't smile.
My words are, you're wearing a mask half the time. I do, like, the little, the
scrunchie.
Yeah, you scrunch guys too.
No, but I started thinking about the toilet paper, and when, so I buy a toilet paper at Costco.
Yeah.
Probably twice a year because there's two of us.
Huge,
So that lasts forever. Coincidentally, my need for toilet paper was around the time I couldn't find it.
I remember that.
So I was down to like 4 or 6 rolls, and my sister moved in.
Single
so
pieces of toilet paper.
Well, so I made the joke one day to my mom. I said, it's 3 squares per piddle was my description. And I said, I really mapped it out. That's how we're going to survive.
My scientific equation.
Yes, 3 squares per piddle.
I think I'm just going to acquire that role just because. It's just me and my brother in the house. You know what? 3 squares, dude.
Even for your brother. There's like 3 piddles.
That's it.
Junior, only 3 squares per piddle.
Oh, God. That's it.
Shout out.
No, one more.
But so I told her, okay, that's the rule. And then I went and bought more toilet paper. Yep. And there was one day where I just pulled and I ripped, and I just was holding this mammoth-sized piece of toilet paper.
Unnecessarily.
And I'm just like...
How wasteful.
How wasteful. Uh-huh. And here I was 2 weeks ago, let's cherish what we have. Yeah. Let's, this is great. I learned I can wipe with 3 squares.
That's impressive. I'm going to go home and try that.
Okay, you do your best thinking on the toilet. Let's be honest.
That's true.
It's very good, especially when you forget your phone.
Oh, gosh. That's a whole... I'm not going to get into that. We're not going to go down that
That's a whole 2-hour podcast.
Yeah. It's a rabbit hole and a half.
But so I was just sitting there okay, that is amazing how easy we can forget what was so important.
Right.
And that's how I kind of feel about this. It's that
was a really good correlation. Way to bring that full circle, because I'm not going to lie, I wasn't lost, but I was sitting there ooh, how is she coming back? I know it's a boomerang.
I wrote it as I was walking up the stairs here, so I'm glad you liked it.
Look at you.
I was just I think there's something.
See, smartest person I know.
Right toilet paper.
Right here. Okay. So we forgot. We're back.
Yeah.
And then
it's just here we are. We're in a world where we're so conscious of this right now. We're being, open to change, and we're promoting change, and we're protesting, and we're doing all this great stuff to make the world a bit better place. But what happens when the next thing happens? When the next murder hornet hits, and this is done. What happens 6 months from now? So every time you take a little piddle.
4 squares. I'm going 4. No, I'll do 3. I'm gonna try that.
Okay. Well, just get a really thick one. 3 is really enough. If it's 12 ply, you're fine.
You're solid.
If it's 1 ply, alright, probably 5.
I always go 1 more than you do. I clearly have no moderation.
I'm learning so much about your bathroom habits here.
I don't even know how many. Nobody knows how many. But I have learned to digress. That I like the toilet paper folded over the top.
Well, yeah. That's actually how the patent is.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, the patent for toilet paper has it coming over the top.
Shoot.
But when I worked in retail, I'll leave it at that. I won't name any names.
Retail.
I learned that for the industrial dispensers, they work best if it comes under.
Stop.
It was a really disappointing day for me because I'm a big
dude. My sister, when she was with me for quarantine, she put it under, and I was
Go get COVID.
Bye.
Like, don't
Deuces.
care.
No, and I would go back in there and I'd change it back. And you know what the best part is? Finally, after like 3 times of changing it, like it back, I finally said something about it, like a true passive aggressive Minnesotan, right? And I was like, dude, can you put the toilet paper like over the top? And she goes, oh yeah, I actually prefer it that way. I was like, what? No logic. No, none. So you prefer it the way that I do it, but you continue to put it the other way.
I mean, like, I prefer a clean house, but I don't always clean the house.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, wowie.
Does that...
I can't argue with that.
Okay.
That was... I have zero
All
rebuttal.
of these domesticated
I
analogies.
have no rebuttal. I like my room clean, but I don't have to clean it. Okay, yeah.
I also not rich enough for clear glasses, so there's no man.
Yeah, I'm the one wearing clear glasses right now. Who you talking to?
I don't know. Is that why your sister puts your toilet paper on there for
Yeah.
you?
She's like, to humble me, remember, you don't have that much money. And I'm like, you right. You're right. Who am I fooling?
The attempt at a very serious podcast topic has gone full toilet paper.
Yeah, you got it.
So, I'm gonna leave it at that. You know, moral of the story, remember, 3 squares per piddle.
Yep.
And that'll keep you a little less racially biased.
Boom. Boom. I don't even know. What's that dude? What's that guy that used to like do the food? And
Bam!
Bam!
Bam! Bam!
Bam! No, I feel like you can't end it right there, but that's pretty funny.
I don't know how to end.
Okay, anyway.
Can you
I'll
actually
end
cut it off?
Just cut it off right there. No, okay. So we'll actually end it here. Just in case if you didn't listen to the first one, go check out the first episode. Also, too, on our Anchor page, you can leave voice messages. So if there's anything that you want to talk to us about, if you want to respond, you can leave a comment. We might even put it in a podcast, listen to it. But we're open to suggestions and information, all that stuff. Opinions, like we said. We're just talking. These are our thoughts. So if you think of anything, don't be afraid to let us know. Ooh,
The dog's already letting us know.
Saying, go do it. That's it.
Bye!
Bye! I have all these things that I can do to the audio, but I don't actually know what they all are, so I have faith that I can figure it out.
Me too.
Thanks. But anyway, so there's this jam, and I just made this build up so aggressive, and it's not even that funny. He's got one shoe off, and he's like shooting hoops, and he's like messing. He's like, "What are you doing in here?" And he's like, "I'm trying to get a scholarship." And the way he says it makes me laugh every time. So anyway.
Okay. No more late night podcast. I gotta say, I didn't think we talked about toilet paper quite so much.
Why not?
I should have made like a brown and white joke.
Oh!
It was right there.
Dang it. Next time.
Do you really do those voices that much?
I do. I make weird voices all the time, and I started to realize, like, And I do that a lot. I can hear myself doing it. And I'm like, I need to stop doing that. But I do. I make weird voices all the time, but I didn't really realize it until I can hear myself doing it. And then I was like, God, why do I do that all the time?
Oh, I didn't know. Hi.
Yeah.
You were a guest on that show?
Baby. Hi.
Hi.
That's super funny.
Okay, don't knock it over.
Oh, that was great.
Oh, we're still recording.
Oh, that even better. You got bloopers now.